when it opened, they had 3 large anchor chain stores there. They had Sears and Kmart and JCPenney, and then it filled in rather quickly with smaller businesses, and it really thrived. What we saw over time was a transformation of retail, and people began to do a lot more of online shopping, and hence you would see the UPS truck driving around a lot because they were doing a lot of deliveries. I think malls, particularly in our size community, which is not large, doesn't have the population density to support a mall with lots of stores. So that's why I think we need to repurpose it, look at having some stores, having some restaurants, having it be a magnet. Maybe there's a movie theater there, which we don't have right now, which would be great. So the history is it was vibrant, and then it slowly diminished over time until the mall couldn't sustain itself.
When I moved to Rutland in 1989, the Diamond Run Mall hadn't been built yet. We still had what people affectionately call the old mall today, and that was over where Home Depot is. And that had a movie theater, a restaurant, an arcade, had everything that you could want, but it was smaller. What ended up happening is this new company came in, Zamias, and they built the new mall. And like I said, you had Sears was an anchor, and Kmart was an anchor, all sorts of new stores, and they filled those stores pretty quick, and it was a big deal when it first opened. For a long time, it thrived quite well. I can remember being up there around Christmas time in that parking lot, which is a big parking lot, just being full. Even JCPenney was there. Always great places to just shop and get what you needed or to spend time.
It was very successful when it first opened, and it was exciting to then see Spartan Arena coming in because it looked like things were going to grow. It looked like it was going to even expand beyond what it was at that moment. And then again, it was the retail experience that people were expecting. They were able to get things very quickly over the internet. It wasn't necessary to go out as much as it used to be. You could get products in other ways, and that started the demise of the mall.
I think it was wildly successful for the first probably 15, 20 years. 97 is, if you think about it, so that would have put us at 2007 at the 10-year mark, and 2017 at the 20-year mark, and that 2017 is almost when it closed, right? So I think it might have closed a little bit before, a little bit after that, if I remember correctly, or in 2017. So in its 20-year run, that first 10 years were probably the best. From what I remember, again, I didn't work there, and I was gone for some of that time, but it had a great run at the beginning, and then towards the end, I can remember going to, I think it was called the Tap Room, which was a restaurant there. They still had Old Navy hung in for a really long time. I think gymnastics were up there. One of the game stores was still up there for a while, right up until they officially decided to close it.
Well, it was pretty full. I think almost every storefront was occupied at that time. It was a busy place. And I don't recall when that mall opened, and I'm not sure when they finally closed it. But for the time I was working there, it was very busy. There were also across from the Disney store. There was a pizza place. They had tables out in the middle of the floor, but you could go and order pizza, or you could order Chinese food. And I worked different shifts at different stores, but I often worked at one store for 4 hours and another store for either 4 or 6 hours, depending on who they needed when.
Well, I visited Rutland for about 20 years before I moved up here, and I remember always going there and, doing little shopping with people I visited with. It was honestly just a mall. But it meant something to the community. It was something for them to do. It was something for the elderly people to go and get exercise and walk around and everything.
Well, Christmas shopping and all the shopping excursions. It was nice to be able to go where there were just a lot of people around. And again, in the beginning, maybe for 10 years or so, there were a lot of people there. and it was a vibrant place. Then shopping patterns changed.
I remember buying Christmas presents for after my first real job, I remember being able to buy Christmas presents at Sears for my family and being able to buy tools for my dad and, stuff for my mom. The candy store, that thing survived forever too. Candy shop at the old mall, moved up to the new mall, and they were always fantastic as a kid, go get a handful of Swedish fish or something like that, and that was always fun. And sitting in the food court and eating was great. They did a big food event. I think it was like the Killington and the Chamber of Commerce for Rutland and Killington did a big food event there every once in a while. And I actually, at the time I worked for the radio station, we did a lot of different remotes at the mall where we would go up and broadcast from the mall for a big event. And all of those kind of stick in my head. That big food court area that we had was always kind of the place to be, I guess, for me when I was younger.
I made friends with the people at both places, the Disney store, Bath and Body Works, and friends with the people who ran the Chinese food and the pizza place. And I really liked it there. It was busy, it was fun. You saw a lot of people you knew, and you met a lot of people you'd never seen before. I love seeing the kids come into the Disney store because they really liked it. And they had while their parents were shopping, they had a big screen on the back wall, and it always had a Disney movie on, so that pretty much occupied the kids.
Initially, it was probably mostly due to national chains reducing their numbers of stores. You'd see things in the news about Montgomery Ward is closing 100 stores, things like that. The company that owned both the Gap and Old Navy decided they only wanted one store there, so the Gap closed. And all the anchor stores were those national chains that were having a lot of trouble during that era. So they lost Montgomery Ward, they lost Sears. Soon after, they lost Kmart. That was the last one to go.
I think the current owners, started charging more for rent. I think the economy itself played a role. If I remember, I wasn't around at the time it really started emptying out. I was here when I was younger, and they had brought it in. It was pretty full, right? There were a lot of stores. You had Sears and you had Kmart, and they were on either ends of the spectrum, and then all those stores in between. And I think between those rising rents and things like Amazon and internet shipping, we saw malls all over the country start to close down and shrink, and only the really large ones survived.
So, as you know, the mall closed on or about 2019. Since then, there have been conversations with A to Z Realty, which are the overseers of the property. They have consistently, when we've talked to them, talked about the return of retail, and that they're looking for and working with a couple potential retailers that they would like to have move in there. They're calling them the big anchors, the ones that would come in and take up larger spaces. We're hoping, if you were to say, if I had a magic wand, what would I like to see there? I think we need a mix of housing and retail, maybe some restaurants.